When we think about high intelligence, what really comes to mind? It's probably not just someone acing a math test, right? Turns out it's way more about a set of powerful mental habits. And that's exactly what we're going to break down right now. So, have you ever noticed this? You're in a meeting, a classroom, whatever, and the smartest person in the room is often the quietest one? It's kind of wild, but it points to this really deep truth about how genuine intelligence actually works. So, what's their secret? Well, it's not that they don't have answers. It's that they're focused on something completely different. And to get what that is, we've got to bust a huge myth about what it even means to be smart. Think about it. We're always so quick to praise the person who shoots their hand up first, the one with the fastest answer. But here's the thing. Real intelligence isn't a race. It's not about speed, it's about depth. That quiet person, they're not just sitting there waiting for their turn to talk. Nope, they're busy building the right questions. And that right there, that leads us to the absolute core of high-level thinking. It's this massive shift away from focusing on what you know to focusing on how you know it. This internal process, this is the bedrock for literally every other habit we're going to get into. Okay, so there's a fancy word for this, metacognition. I know, it sounds super academic, but the idea is actually really simple. It's thinking about your thinking. It's being able to analyze your own mental engine while it's running. You start asking yourself things like, wait, are my assumptions here actually correct? Or, is there a bias creeping into my reasoning? This is the internal monologue of a truly sharp thinker. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you're not just the actor on the stage of your own mind. You're also the director, sitting in the audience, watching the whole play unfold. That perspective, that's what lets you catch your own mistakes and fine-tune your thinking on the fly. And the best part? This is absolutely a skill. It's something you can practice and get better at. Which brings us perfectly to our next big idea, because just like building muscle at the gym, cognitive strength isn't something you're just born with. No way. It's something you build day in and day out through consistent, deliberate practice. You got to think of it like a workout for your brain. And this is so important. You can't just become a better thinker by passively binge watching documentaries or scrolling through articles. That's just consumption. To really build intelligence, you need active engagement. You have to grapple with tough ideas. You have to challenge what you think you know. And you have to intentionally, put your brain in situations where it has to work hard. It's so easy to stay in our comfort zone, right? We just consume stuff that confirms everything we already believe. But truly intelligent minds, they do the opposite. They actively seek out the growth zone. They choose mental discomfort. They'll read a book by someone they totally disagree with, just to understand the other side. That friction, that's exactly where the growth happens. All right, another huge habit is getting away from that black and white, all or nothing thinking. Using words like always or never. The sharpest thinkers operate in a world of probabilities. They're constantly asking, okay, but how likely is this to be true? It opens up a world of nuance and makes you so much more adaptable. So let's just quickly recap the big three so far. First, practice metacognition. Watch yourself think. Second, choose discomfort. That's how you build cognitive muscle. And third, think in probabilities, to see the world in shades of gray, not just black and white. Okay, so now for a bit of a twist. We tend to think of intelligence as this cold, logical, Spock-like thing. But it turns out a massive part of high-level thinking is actually emotional. Why? Think about it. Our emotions, anger, fear, even excitement, can totally hijack our rational brain. It's impossible to think clearly if your judgment is all clouded up by some emotional reaction. So being able to manage those feelings, that's not some fluffy soft skill. It's an absolute prerequisite for clear, objective thinking. So look at it this way. Path 1 is how most of us operate by default. Something happens, the stimulus, and bam, we have an immediate gut reaction. But the sharpest minds, they've mastered path 2. They insert one tiny, crucial step, the pause. In that little gap between stimulus and response, they give their rational brain a chance to catch up. And that lets them choose a deliberate response instead of just having an automatic reaction. That, my friends, is emotional intelligence in action. So what's the big takeaway here? How do we put all this together? The most important thing to remember is that this stuff isn't set in stone. These aren't fixed traits you're born with. They are skills, which means you can actually choose to become a better thinker, and you can start literally right now. All right, let's wrap it up with the key takeaways. Intelligence is a practice, not a possession. Think about your thinking. Actively lean into mental challenges. Swap out words like always and never for probably and unlikely. And maybe most important of all, master that tiny, powerful pause before you react. So to finish this up, I want to leave you with a challenge, a question. It's an exercise in both metacognition and choosing discomfort. I want you to think of one belief, just one strong opinion that you hold, and then ask yourself, what would it take to prove me wrong? What if you spent just 10 minutes, that's it, trying to argue for the other side, against your own position? That small act, that is the first rep in your high IQ workout. Give it a shot.